You promised to take us there again someday, but you never did. Well, we're all alone there now in our special place, waiting for you. In our restless dreams, we see that podcast. Gaming is in session, session 3. Adam, how are you feeling this evening?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Got this new mic. I'm moving. For those who are listening, you can't tell, but for those who are watching, I'm moving around. I can dance. I can move. I can really let you have it, Alex. I cannot wait. I've been waiting to cover this game for a while. We have been waiting for Silent Hill 2, the remake, and it is time. And I'm excited to talk about it. It's Halloween. It's a perfect time for a game like this. But really, the question is, as always, we've played 20% of the game, and we have to decide in this episode, are we going to continue to play it, or are we going to move on to one of the many other games in our backlog? Before we even get to that, Alex, let's talk fan shout-outs. How about you hit us with our fan shout-out?
Yeah, fan shout-out from @210God_win11. Great name, rolls off the tongue. Hell yeah, stoked to see gaming is still in session. Gaming's always been in session.
It was never out of session, but thank you either way.
I think this guy didn't realize we had a whole Play PSVR 2 podcast thing going on. But I don't know. But he's here. We're glad to have you here.
It's the Gaming in Session podcast. It makes sense. Thank you, Win11. Don't let Alex bring you down. Thank you for the comment. Alex, I'm just gonna get in it. I knew tonight was gonna be spirited. We know it's spooky, it's creepy. I know this is a game you have a lot to say, and I know I'm gonna be fighting to get any words in at all because you're gonna try to monopolize the podcast. So I got Sewer Ox. It is.
Are you? Wait, no, Adam, hold on. Are you sure that's not like a toilet cleaner?
Yeah, like it's an electrolyte beverage.
It looks like something you use to clean your toilet, like a Drano. It even has the name Sewer Ox. Like you're gonna run an ox through the sewer and clear out your drains.
Oh, you legit. Okay. I'm actually very happy that you were gonna stop me. But no, this says electrolyte beverage and it has nutrition facts. So
nutrition for all the feces that you're about to be clearing out.
It is called Blueberry Reboot. Oh, what if it? Oh no! What if it's like clearing out my intestines?
Yeah. It's gonna run through your bum like an ox, right into the sewer.
I mean, it just says it's electrolytes. Either way, it's pretty good. Blueberry.
I can't help but see the red clearance aisle label that was on it. How much was that? 99 cents? A cool 50 cents?
$2.
$2. It looks like something you'd get at the Dollar Tree. Did you at least refrigerate it before you drank it?
No, I didn't get a Dollar Tree. Here's the thing. I want to get things I've never seen before. That's the great thing about Gamer Juice. If we just always drink a new beer, that's not cool, Alex. You got to branch out. And sometimes you got to risk the Drano competitors to really test your what do you call it?
Fortitude.
Grit, fortitude, just like our man.
Sewer?
James Sunderland. But what are you drinking?
Yeah, I got the double whammy here. So I went to the Asian grocery store. We got the McColl Zero. I have no idea what this is. McColl Zero sugar, and it looks like one of the health drinks you might see in Silent Hill 2. For those that haven't followed so far, we're covering Silent Hill 2, the remake that just came out, by the way.
Yeah. So you're drinking Macaulay Culkin 2? Right?
Macaulay Culkin, he puts a little bit of himself in each drink, they say. It tastes like Coke Zero. I don't know why it's in this can like it's an energy drink. It's not great. It's not great. But I did.
But you have a chaser.
I have a chaser. Because this game is so scary, I got to get myself socially lubricated so that I can discuss it. This is watermelon soju. It's an alcoholic drink from Korea. And I got these. This is not Korean. This is a little sake cup.
Oh, I like that.
Got a beautiful little Japanese lady on it here, and it's got the small serving here. Just a little shot of it, make me feel good. Oh, I brought a glass of. There we go.
Wait, is Sogu Really?
Soju.
Is soju, what percent alcohol is it? Why are you only drinking a shot glass worth?
It's 12%. So it's nothing
Not that
huge.
much. Come on, drink the bottle, you whimsical pansy.
It's designed to be enjoyed in groups. I actually was told that there's enough in here to fill only an odd number of these cups. Therefore, if you buy it, you have to it's to encourage you to drink with others. Here I am drinking with you, Adam. Um, so I think you have to buy like two two bottles at least to have an I guess an even number. But yeah,
I don't whatever. You do you, man. Whatever soju. It sounds like a joke, but I'm gonna move on to that. Silent Hill 2, baby. We have been waiting on it. Like we said, it is a perfect Halloween spooky time game. This bad boy, if you're unaware, was back in the PS2. They have now remade it for the PS5 and Steam and other systems. It is $69.99, $75 for the privilege, Alex, once
yeah.
you include tax. Is made by the developers are Bloober Team, which personally I've never heard of, but they made games like The Medium, The Blair Witch, and The Layers of Fears. There's at least two of those. Have you played anything by the Bloober Team?
No, I've not, but they're kind of a it was kind of controversial when they were announced to be the team remaking this game because that's all those games are like okay. And Silent Hill 2 is a game that's like held in high regard. And so when it was announced that Bloober Team was going to be making this, people got notably worried and I was worried. Um I'm still worried to some degree that are they going to be able to pull off. Let me look up Bloober Team, see what games the scores they have.
I literally just told you. Those are like
No,
what.
what the scores were. Like they're like
Oh,
a consistent like
we don't
5 to
have time
7 out
for
of
that.
10.
Alex, tell me. I never played Silent Hill. Never played it. I've heard of it. I
Yeah.
don't know if there is a Silent Hill 1. Is there?
Well, let me tell you, Adam. So yeah, there's a Silent Hill 1. So
Okay.
this was like right after Resident Evil came out and everybody loved it. Everybody was trying to make games like it. So Capcom they made Resident Evil, people loved it. So Konami was like, we're gonna get in on that. They made Silent Hill, which was like a competitor, right? It was kind of janky. Wasn't as well received, but people still liked it because it was like scarier than Resident Evil. Um, And then Silent Hill 2 came out, and it was a PS2 game. And whereas Resident Evil kind of leaned into more of the action horror type genre, Silent Hill 2 leaned into more of this like psychological horror stuff happening. When it launched on PS2, like in 2001, it was not like it was well received, but didn't have a legendary status. I think the reviews were kind of like in the 7 to 8 out of 10 range. I even read some reviews of it earlier today that were just like, yeah, it's pretty boring. It'll put you to sleep. It's not that good of a game. Um, but it gained like a cult following when the Xbox first came out. One of the big things was that they ported it over to Xbox with a bunch of extra bonuses and it was supposed to be great. Ended up reviewing even worse, but people still like it. And then they ported it over to PC recently. It reviewed even worse, and part of that is because the original Silent Hill was designed to be played on like the old TVs, like CRT TVs, right? It came out before like flat screens and stuff were out there. So there's an inherent amount of blur that people are looking for. And also because of the, technical limitations, the game was very foggy. And so when they brought it to beefier hardware, they removed the fog, they sharpened up the graphics, and the game lost a lot of its charm to where it was like, it's brighter, everything's sharper, and there's no blur anymore, and things aren't quite as scary. And so for a long time, there's been kind of a concern of like, what's the best way to play? How I want to get the real Silent Hill 2 experience. What do I have to do? I have to get a PS2. I got to find a copy of this game on PS2. I got to plug it into an old TV that I don't have anymore. And that's the best way to play it. And so the hope was that this re-release, is going to finally give people a definitive or a best way to revisit the glory that is Silent Hill 2. Is that a good enough recap for you, Adam? Adam, do you feel caught up to speed?
Yeah, Alex, great. I didn't know anything about Silent Hill. Still don't know anything about Silent Hill. I don't know why do people love the second one so much more?
The first one is like the first was like the origin of how Silent Hill, kind of the origin of like how the Silent Hill place came to be so creepy. Um, and the second one is more of like a side story that's really character focused. And also, I think in terms of gameplay, there's differences. Like the original one, you move like you do in Resident Evil, where like when you hit left, you don't run left, you like start turning like that, and then you have to hit up to move like that. So it's a bit clunkier. But in this one, you have like the full 3D movement, and also this came out like in PlayStation 2, so it just looked way better than the PlayStation 1. I admittedly haven't played Silent Hill 1. I mean to at some point, but yeah, Silent Hill 2. Really the big thing is the story is really good, and I'll kind of go with the story to make it better.
Okay, interesting that that people think the story is good. We'll get into it. Anything else about the history you want to talk about before I start talking about the game? I want to talk about the game.
I mean, it sounds like you don't care about the history, so I'll have a little side podcast that I'll do by myself talking about the rich history of Silent Hill 2 and its traveled road to getting here. But yeah, Adam, let's go into the game. Let's talk about our what you want to start with initial reactions?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can cover it. It was on what more do you need to know? It was on PS2. They made a bunch of ports for it. It's another one of these games that rather than coming up with something original, the fat cats who think they know what we as consumers want are remaking another old game. I just only speak for myself. I don't want this. I want new IPs. I want new games. If I want to play the old ones, I'll go and freaking get a PS2. I have a Steam Deck for that crap. Like
You're the type of dude who complain. You're the type of dude who complains that like, oh, why do they keep making like things based off Shakespeare? I'm tired of Shakespeare. I want to hear something new. It's like, no, there's not something new. Most things coming out aren't new and as good as Shakespeare. So sometimes you just got to revisit the classics. And I appreciate remakes like this because I don't want to have to hook up a PS2. I want to be able to revisit the classics. I want to be able to play and enjoy the great stuff that I used to enjoy. I mean, you one of your favorite games is Resident Evil 4 remake, another remake of a game that's been remastered about 100 times.
in VR. If it's
Nonetheless,
here's the thing. I will say a quick one off. If nothing else, this game has cemented to me that there is nothing like virtual reality. This
you
game
can
is nothing. It is a peon compared to Resident Evil and virtual reality, and it's simply because of VR. I got more to say on that. We'll get into it. But I mean, I don't care about, I'm sorry, I don't care about the remakes. Most of the remakes they butcher anyhow.
So, but okay. Well, then, but before you get into your reactions, let's just lay the setting of the game. This is essentially a survival horror game, just like Resident Evil, those types of games you've played. There's puzzles. You're trying to move around and explore environments so you can progress through the levels. Um, and this is a game that's primarily trying to scare you with more psychological stuff rather than jump scares necessarily, although those are still there. You have the 3D movement. The premise of the game is you are what's his name? James Sunderland,
That's
this
right.
everyman who his wife was dead for 3 years, and one day he got a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, come meet me in Silent Hill. That place, our special place." And so he's driven to Silent Hill. You start the game. You're James Sunderland looking in the mirror of some decrepit bathroom off the side of a highway, and he walks out of the bathroom, and then you're on your way to go try to find your ostensibly dead wife who just wrote you a letter. So that's the lay of the land. That's the intro to the game. Adam, what are your initial reactions for the game?
Oh man, it's taken a lot to hold it back. Here's the things I want to say. I've already mentioned it. It's a perfect game for Halloween, the spooky season. It started off on a great note with the mental health statement. Right off the bat, it throws in, yo, this game handles suicide and sexual abuse and could cause seizures and other like mental disorders and stuff. The perfect start. That got me going. I was like, let's go. I'm sick of these games like Stilt for the PSVR 2 that are little freaking child games or Plucky Squire. Yeah, I am an adult. Give me an adult game. Let's go. So I right off the bat, I even text you, Alex, right immediately. It's like, okay, I'm ready to go. I also love the fact I find it interesting that the settings allow you to choose, for example, a difficulty from the combat and the puzzles. I feel like it's the first time I've ever had two difficulties for those facets of a game. I also love the fact that you can make the graphics look modern or like the 90s. I chose modern, but the 90s looked I don't know, ish, what it maybe could be
So
more grunge, I guess. How would you grainy? How would you describe it?
yeah, it's not really changing the graphics that much. It's just putting a filter over the front of all the graphics. So you still have like the the next gen graphics, right, with the fancy ray tracing and stuff like that. The full remake, fancy stuff happening, but they do put like a fake CRT filter over the top. And when I was looking at those settings, I kind of waffled back and forth. I didn't know which one I wanted to do because part of the appeal of Silent Hill 2 is like the griminess of it. Um, and so I thought it might be nice to have that CRT setting, but they had a warning that said, "Listen, the default settings are what we philosophically intended with the game." So I was like, "All right, I'll play it the way they wanted me to play it, the way they designed it." So I took that grainy filter off. Although I am playing the game on normal difficulty level for combat, normal difficulty level for puzzles. The one on PS2 had the same thing. There was a easy combat and easy puzzles. Those could be set separately, which was pretty forward thinking. I don't know that I've ever explored the hard puzzles. I haven't really gone back to replay Silent Hill 2 since I first played it. But I did look a little bit into the differences of the puzzle. Man, when you put it on hard mode for the puzzles, some of those puzzles are freaking hard. So I'm glad I didn't do that. Would have been really frustrating. Combat, I think when I originally played it, I put the combat on easy because I knew the controls were kind of clunky and I didn't want to deal with it. But this time I'm doing normal and normal. What did you pick? Just normal?
Yeah, I picked normal. And the other thing I wanted to mention right off the bat is DualSense is still freaking undefeated, dude. It's so cool and it is used so well when you is very early in the game pick up a radio, and that radio, there's static that you hear from the controller when you're near danger and when you're near the enemies. That is such a cool feature, works really well, sounds fantastic. The controller is amazing. But I want to get into really the cream of the crop, the game, Alex. And the game, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's so bad. This game is absolute freaking trash. Alex, let's start from ground zero, baby. I'm going to let you lead us in this one. For you, Alex, what is the hallmark of a bad game? Let's start. Name the first hallmark of a bad game for you.
That it crashes when you start it?
Okay. Let's say an actual stable game that isn't from DOS or Commodore 64, whatever it used to be back.
No, I mean a game that's technically unstable, a game that has technical imperfections to it, right? So like the controls are bad, the moment-to-moment gameplay
There we
itself
go.
is
There we
bad.
go. Good. There it is. The controls. Let's talk about the controls, Alex. And the controls I break up into kind of two things, right? Number one, let's talk about the combat. You started to want to get into the combat. Let's talk about the combat, Alex. Top 5 worst combat games I've ever played in my entire life. It is atrocious. It is abominable. It is slow moving. It's monotonous. It's robotic. It's so hard to, until you have a controller in your hand and you try to play the game, you can't understand it. It's so bad. I haven't had a good time for a single second while being in the combat, which is unfortunate. And here's the thing, Alex. After the first hour, I say F it. I run by enemies. I refuse to fight them because it's such a miserable experience. Is that a mark of a good game, of good combat, of good controls?
So no. right there, you encapsulated what one of the nice and amazing things about the game is the combat isn't bad in the sense that you can't do what you want to do. The combat,
no, it is.
No, hold on. The combat is reflective of your character. You're James Sunderland. You're not Leon Kennedy of the U.S. Special Forces. You're this everyman dude who's walked into this creepy ass town. Your only weapon is a block of wood that you found on a wall that had some nails in it, and you're fighting these otherworldly creatures. You're not going to be an action hero. This isn't Devil May Cry. This isn't God of War. This is you or some dude who just got out of his car, and you're suddenly getting assaulted by these like zipped up fetish weirdos spewing bile at you. So no, you're not supposed to be. And the other thing, the really salient point you made is at one point you just started running past the enemies. That's the point. And many games have tried this where they say, hey, you should, like Resident Evil, for example, when you're really not supposed to fight all of the zombies in Resident Evil unless you want to. That was the point of the limited weapon or limited ammunition. That was the point of the clunky controls, was to motivate you to navigate around the zombies rather than to actually try to engage with them and fight them. this game does it much more handily in that you don't feel very well equipped to fight all the bad guys you see. And at some point, even for me this time, somebody who's familiar with the game, I know the combat pretty well. I was running away from the enemies rather than fighting them because if you're just an everyman dude in this town, you're not going to be fighting everything. You're going to be avoiding them as much as possible and only fighting them when you have to. It is slow because James is slow. He's not an action hero. The gunfighting isn't super quick and precise because you're not Rainbow Six. You're James Sunderland, who might have never shot a gun in his life before, but you have to now because it's ride or die sometimes during those tight hallways. Now, I will say this: some nice touches they've put into the combat is that they have when you're fighting the enemies and they fall down on the ground, you can do the ground attack, and he just basically overhead swings the thing and smashes them and kills them. What's really nice, I love this, and it really has no effect on the gameplay, but the animation and the sound design for it is so perfect that when you finally get an enemy on the ground and you keep attacking them, James will stop swinging at him at some point and just start grunting and stomping on them. And you keep doing it, and his voice gets more and more exasperated as it goes because it sounds like a man really breaking down, having to do this thing he's never done before in his life, and he can't handle the situation he's in. It's just it's masterful because the hallmark of this being a maybe not a good video game, fun to play video game, but a great work of art type game is that the combat isn't there for you to enjoy. The combat is there as something that you almost have to suffer through, not because it's mechanically broken like you have in other combat games, but because you're not a guy who's supposed to be a big fighter or anything like that. You're an everyman, and it's emblematic of the story at large and the character at large in the game design. I love the game for how they did it. They didn't do it in an insulting
This
way, like
sounds
we're just
like
gonna make your
someone
guns.
who's trying to make up for, and you're right, some of the things I hate about the game, I do think are built into the game, which is why I even had a tagline for this episode: Silent Hill 2 Remake Too Faithful, because it's too faithful to the original, because if that's the way the original was, it's appalling. Going back to the controls. And yeah, you're, oh, this is meant to be like that. Okay, great. They intended to make a god-awful game. Good job. I want to sell it and never play a game again because it's so horrible.
What is wrong with the controls? What's wrong with the controls?
So slow. He
Yeah.
is so freaking slow, even when he runs. And it was so bad because this game is so bad. And I know it was a highly revered game. And I refuse to believe that the PS2 version was that bad. I was like, there's no way people would like this. So I went back and watched the PS2. I didn't watch the full walkthrough. I watched up until I am in the remake, so I don't spoil anything. Honest to God, the PS2 version's better. The dude can actually effing run. The combat isn't as bad. It looks better, like it's scarier. The PS2 version looks better than this piece of crap. Here, he's so friggin' slow.
You know there's a run button, right? You know there's a run button.
Yeah, and
okay.
it's like he's got the stick he swings. It's halfway up his arse, his south mouth. It's bull crap. I cannot stand a game that's humongous that doesn't tell you where to go. Hey, just wander around like a freaking idiot. Oh, by the way, you aren't any faster than a dude with a wheelchair who needs to use it but only has one wheel. That's absolute garbage. Let me see. What else did I hate?
Wait, hold on. So just right off the bat, everybody, Adam's upset that a horror game doesn't have combat like God of War and speed like Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay, now that would make a fun horror game if you were as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog and you had the alacrity of Kratos from God of War. All right, keep going.
Exactly. And you already mentioned how the gun sucks, and you're right. The gunplay does suck. I can't. It's like you have to overcompensate to even use it. I don't use the gun. It's useless.
Look at that. Again, Adam is being driven in the direction you're supposed to be going by the game design. Now, you think I'm making it up. They have interviews with the designers of the game, and they say, yeah, we did that on purpose. You're not supposed to be a combat hero. You're not supposed to be some like Navy SEAL shooting guys. You're supposed to be on edge and struggling with what you're having to do at all times. So yeah, I think job done. And again, not in a frustrating way, in a realistic and believable way.
It isn't. And if that's how they intended it, perfectly fine. But they intended to make an absolute god-awful piece of crap game. Congrats.
What did you think this game was going? Did you think it was Resident Evil? Because Resident Evil 4 is an action game that has spooky elements.
Horrendous version of Resident Evil. Like, I didn't love Resident Evil 4 when I played it on flat mode, right? You told me to, was it 4? Which one did you tell me to play in flat mode? Where you have the like the big cargo, I don't know, storage container, and you have to hit the monster a few times, and was it 2?
Maybe 2, yeah.
Yeah, it was the Raccoon City, and
Yeah, that's 2, yeah.
okay. So I played Resident Evil 2 based on your opinion, and it was in flat mode, and I didn't like that game either. I thought it sucked too, but that was way miles ahead better than this piece of trash. So I feel like I'm playing the worst imaginable Resident Evil game. That's what this feels like. It's not scary. The controls are horrible. And again, I think even let's talk about the character. You wanted to talk about the character. Let's talk about the character, Alex. So, James Sunderland. I have zero faith in this dude. Right off the bat, he admits, oh, my wife's dead. She's been dead for 3 years. I got a letter. She can't be here. I don't even know where our special place is. Okay, 1, you're a horrible husband. And 2, he already admits that she's dead. But okay, let's go along with it. No big problem. You go into the game and you meet one of the first secondary characters. Man, I'm blanking.
Her name's Angela.
Yes, Angela. She's a 19-year-old. They made her uglier in the remake. Honest to God, look at the PS2 version. She looks way better. The cutscenes are better in the PS2 version. I swear. I'm not messing with you. Anyhow, then she's like, don't go to Silent Hill. It's dangerous. He's like, I don't care if I die. I don't care if it's dangerous. I just don't care anymore. All right, well, that gives me faith in him. Then he sees one of the monsters. And the monsters they're kind of, I don't know, what do you call them? Like zombie like.
It's like somebody wrapped up in like a fetish suit, right? They're almost like a straight jacket that's wrapped up, but they've been bleeding or beaten, and they're covered in vomit or something like that, and they crawl around on their ground. They just have legs, right? So they just crawl around on the ground.
And those look cool, admittedly. So he sees one, he defeats the first one, and what is it? He's like, what was that? I don't know, but it wasn't human. No voice inflection, no freak out moment. If he's supposed to be a real guy, don't you think someone's losing their effing mind? He is stoic. He is emotionless. He saw a child inside the apartment where you have Mr. Red Pyramid Head, and he's just like, a kid? He doesn't try to friggin' like really save the kid or freak out or beg for help or anything. He's so emotionless. He doesn't care. In rom-com, you see everything happen. You're like, oh, will they, won't they? In this case, I'm like, I don't care if he does. I don't care if he will. In fact, I hope he doesn't. I hope he dies. How can you be invested in a character that's such a freaking dud as this effing loser? Like,
this is amazing that Adam is upset at what they've done. Yeah, that's the point. James Sunderland, again, he's not Kratos. He's not Leon Kennedy. He's not Mr. Cool. He's not.
Human, you're gonna freak out when you kill a zombie, man.
Listen, I don't want to listen. Spoiler warning: we're gonna keep playing this game.
No, I know. I have a caveat on here, but go ahead.
I am so glad you're saying the things you're saying. That's just what I want to say. James Sunderland is, it was one of the things when they first released previews for Silent Hill 2, or back in the day, people were like, man, that guy's ugly as hell. And everybody who's played the game was like, yeah, James Sunderland is ugly. He needs to be ugly. There's a reason why he's so ugly. There's a reason why he's so pathetic. There's a reason why you hate him. So every feeling that you have about him is important. And so, yeah, you hate James Sunderland. Great.
I don't hate him. I just think it's a bad game. That's right now. That is how I'm feeling.
You think it's a bad game because he is a bad human.
No. I think it's a bunch of stuff coming together.
No, I know. But one of the reasons you think it's a bad game is because James Sunderland is a bad character or a bad human.
The story sucks. The characters suck, which makes
All right. I'm just happy to hear it. I can't say much more. I'm just happy to hear it.
Well, that's wild because I'm very unhappy to say it because I'm having a freaking miserable time, Alex. I sat an hour. I think it was an hour and a half. It may have been 2 hours into the game, and I stopped. And this is, I'm not embellishing. This is a true story. I stopped. I paused the game, and I went to the PlayStation home screen, and I just sat there for about 45 seconds, and I was like, can I do this? Not like, oh, I'm getting defeated and I'm dying. Am I able to like finish the game? I was like, mentally, can I keep playing this? I don't know if I can. And I was like, one of the caveats is we said at the beginning of this entire gaming is in session, at some point we didn't iron out the details. We didn't think we'd need to use it this early. We're each going to get a veto, where if the other one wants to play it, the other can override them. And I know we're not going to get many of them, and we don't know how many. I was like, I'm using it. I'll finish the 4 hours, but I'm going to use it because this is the only game I hated more than this, I think, is Outer Wilds. And you know how badly I hated that when we were playing whole games. But let's continue, Alex. Let's continue. What are some more marks of a horrible game in your mind?
More marks of a horrible game. Bad. I don't want to say bad graphics because there's games with bad graphics that are good.
Oh yeah, but you touched on it. Let's talk about the graphics.
Yeah.
PS2 looks better. Dead freaking like scarier.
And so, in what way? In what way? Okay, yeah, scarier. Why?
Okay, so here you can't, and it's not every area, but most of the game, at least the first 4 hours, you are in an apartment building.
Yeah.
You are in a hospital, or you are in I guess those three things. So in those areas, the game is too dark, and you're really closed in. Like when you're outside, it's not too bad, even when it's dark, because you have your flashlight and you can see. But they cram you into this apartment and in these areas where you're really consolidated. It's pitch black, and although you have a flashlight, you can't effing see what you're doing.
Would you say it feels claustrophobic and stressful?
No, I would say I can't tell where I'm going because I can't effing see the game. I haven't jumped once. I haven't been scared. I don't feel claustrophobic. I feel really effing annoyed that it all looks the same and it's bad. Maybe you're going to say they did it on purpose, and maybe they did. And if they did, fantastic. But it's bad level design, and that I don't want to keep playing it. If it weren't for you, even if you let me do it, cool, they made a game that's horrible. I played an hour and a half and I tossed it in the trash. Is that like, that's not good? Anyhow, the graphics suck. Okay. It's way too dark.
So the graphics suck because it's dark. What else do you think is wrong?
So
with the graphics?
I had to turn the gamma really far up to see anything. I'm trying to see an effing door. I can't see any of it.
Adam got too scared, so he had to turn the brightness up on his TV.
No, it's not that I can't. I'm not scared. I can't see
the monster might be in the closet. Let me turn up the gamma so I can actually see what they're doing.
No, I can't see even the walls, man. So anyhow,
I'm not scared. I just want to see everything.
It makes the game look whitewashed. And it looks horrible because of that.
Because you turned up the brightness because you were scared of the game. Okay.
Then we already talked about the cutscenes are, again, in the PS2, normally I would just say I don't love them, but the PS2 version, they're better.
Why are they better? Why are they better?
First, I feel like they look better.
In what way? In what way? Like they look more realistic, or they move better?
Have more definition. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah, I could buy that. I could buy. One thing that I wanted to bring up for the graphics is that they did try to. I mean, in the original PS2 game, like James looks sick. Like he looks physically sick. He's like pasty skin. Not like he's dead or anything, but he looks like he hasn't left.
I liked. Yeah, I'm down.
And this one, he looks more like a normal human, which is fine, but he doesn't look as like pathetically sick, like he's about to puke at any point. Yeah.
Yeah. True. Even like the Angela,
yeah.
she looked different, much better in the PS2. Even the
I think a big difference with Angela was that because of like the way culture has progressed, I think she was like 16 in the original game, and they maybe aged her up a bit for reasons that I can't really tell you. It's not like she gets naked or anything, but I think they just tried to
PC bullcrap. If it was good in the original, they took the best things about the original again in the first 4 hours. It's a little unfair to say the whole game yet, but the fact that he could actually run in the original and the fact that it looked scarier, like it just looked more grungy, whatever that.
Grungy. Yeah, grime. I think grimy is a better word.
Yeah, it looked more grimy,
Yeah.
and it looked the cutscenes looked better. They took the three best things out of the PS2 version and they didn't convert them to the remake. They kept the worst parts of the game. Like what?
So this is impressive because now Adam is again agreeing with everybody's big concerns about this. Is that in opting for fidelity and realism, they took away some of the artistic choices made in the PS2 game, which is one of the big questions about this game overall, right? Silent Hill 2 is getting a remake. Are they going to ruin parts of it by making the graphics better, sharper, brighter, less obscured? And it sounds like you're saying, yeah, they've messed up and trying to make things more faithful to like realism
They made
graphically.
the whore. I don't remember her name either. Sorry. What's the one? She looks like your wife, but she's not.
Yeah, I forget her name. Oh, I forget her name. But yeah, there's
Angie. No, Maria. It's Maria.
Maria. Yeah,
Yeah.
so your wife's name is Mary. Her name's Maria. You meet her later.
Like, Maria back in the PS2 showed some effing skin. This chick is all bundled up. Show me the skin. Quit trying. Bull crap. Keep the good parts of the original if you're going to steal anything from the original. Let's go back more, Alex. Horrible user interface and HUD. Number one, I already talked about the graphics, so I don't need to go into that crap anymore. But let's talk about when you get hit. When you take damage, it's like what? Maybe 3 hits, maybe 4. But originally, when you get hit, you see a little more like red. It's almost like veins, just indicating, hey, you took some damage. And the more damage you take, the more red and veins and stuff that you see that overtake the screen. And that is to tell you, hey, you're running out of health. So at first I used that. First 3 hours, fine, whatever. I took it off because once you get to only 1 hit left or something, the whole freaking screen's red. You can't see. So I die because I can't see the enemies because I got hit once or twice. Now you red is over the whole freaking screen. So and then let me.
So you can okay.
So that is incredibly annoying. So I was like, no big deal. It's a vignette, right? I'll just take it off. Can you believe the numbskulls, morons, idiots don't have a health bar? So I took the vignette off. Okay, so I solved one problem. Now I can't tell how much health I have. So I've died multiple times because I've only taken 1 or 2 hits. And I'm like, I still have a life. I get hit one more time, boom, I'm dead. But he's not breathing harder. There's no life bar. And I hit start. There's no way to tell how much health you have. Why intentionally make bad choices to make your game infuriating? Why?
So that is a Bloober Team edition. Now, I would say one of the issues I have with the game is exactly that. So there's a border that turns red, and it seems very separated from the entire game, and it's kind of intrusive to where even if you've taken 1 hit, you're compelled to heal yourself because it's so distracting and annoying to have that red border. I didn't know you could take the vignette off, so I'm going to be doing that. I haven't died once playing the game, but maybe I will more. There is a small detail that I noticed that indicates how much health you have, and there's blood on the back of his coat as he takes more damage, and you see that it like dissolves away whenever he drinks health. So there is that. If you didn't notice, of course, it might be hard to see because the game's really dark, but there is that. But that is one thing I really don't like. Is I really don't like that vignette, especially when you take a lot of damage. A little red cross starts flashing in the corner, which is just like so video gamey and really not in the theme with the game at all. But it is annoying to the point where I'm never running around with less than 100% health because I just hate having that vignette there.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to get through my last 2 points just so in the next segment we can talk a little more. Maybe it's not so negative, but I needed to get it out because I've been holding it in for too many.
Busted at the seams.
The lack of direction. The game's pretty big. It's not open world. You have no effing idea what to do or where to go. I have, in the 44 hours I've played, 40 minutes of it I've wasted walking around trying to figure out what do I do. And in some amount, that's fine, right? Like it's a video game. It's not meant to maybe be literally, oh, you do this. But then it just doesn't give you any direction, and it feels really annoying. Like the coins in the apartment. There's a part where you have to find 3 coins to progress. And that, like, I knew I needed to find coins, but then I was like, where are the effing coins? There was like 1, maybe 2 of them you could argue were like kind of hinted at, but not like uber well. I didn't know what to do. I had to look it up because at that point I was like, I hate this game. I want to kill myself. That's what the mental health warning should be. You're going to want to end yourself. This game is so freaking horrible. Then the last thing I want to mention, I've just lumped it in the random bull crap because I don't really know what else to call it. It doesn't go in a category. So when you die, the autosave, don't have an autosave. Just don't have it because it's useless. So they tell you you're going to autosave. So maybe I play a little more risky because I'm like, I got autosave to back me up. I've been playing for 25 minutes. Certainly an autosave before that. Nope. And I know with PS2 you had to save and it didn't have autosave, but it didn't tell you that it had autosave and then take you all the way back to the save point. Either have it and utilize it or don't have it. And then on top of that, when you do die, I don't know how you haven't died. Good for you, Alex. But when you do die, when you get resurrected and when you do come back, they don't have the decency to fill your health bar. You have the same amount of damage as you started. So then you're still scrounging around for health, hoping.
So there isn't autosave. It's just not frequent. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I can't believe when you die, I've never seen I'm sure there are examples. It's been a long time, I guess I will say, that when I have died in a game, they don't give you full health when you resurrect. Except that's freaking stupid. Then other things like in the game, to one of those coins I mentioned I didn't know how to find, you drop some cans of juice down the garbage chute, and then the coin just pops out at the bottom. What is that?
So if you didn't look at the garbage chute, you drop the juice from the 3rd floor, the garbage chute's on the 1st floor. On the 2nd floor, when you go to the chute, you look down the chute and you see that the coin's sitting there, but it's stuck on top of some trash that's stuck in the garbage chute. So the reason the coin comes
look in the garbage chute, however, I guess I didn't see it because either the graphics are way too dark or they suck so bad. So now I understand why he looked in the garbage chute the one time. Okay, but okay, whatever. That kind of, I guess, explains that, but still totally unnecessary. The whole game, Alex, a glorified fetch quest. I have never seen a game, that's maybe a little exaggerated. I've never seen a good game that is, I am fine getting into the apartments and, you need to get into a room to find the gun or whatever. Oh, it's locked. You need a key. No big deal. That happens. It makes sense. It's a video game, right? But let's go to the instances where, I'm in a room and to progress to the game, I need to work with a grandfather clock. The grandfather clock is missing all 3 of its hour, minute, and second hands. Okay, well, I've got to go find each of those individually. And guess what? Each one of those, I go in and there's a puzzle for the first one. And I've got to find a swan. The swan's broken up into 2 different pieces. And then I have to find a pigeon. So I have to fetch quest, find those 3 things, put them together, solve the puzzle, get the hand, take it back to the grandfather clock, do that 3 times. It's just nothing but, you gotta go find this. You gotta go find that. A little bit of it is fine. Again, I know it's a video game, but the entire effing game is like that. It's horrible. How can you enjoy this?
What game could you not reduce to something like that, right? It's like if I said Doom is just a glorified like pixel clicker. All I'm doing is moving my mouse and clicking on pixels. The point of the quote unquote fetch quest, which you forgot to mention, you have combat in between and exploration in the environment during the entire fetch quest thing, is to get you to engage with the environment, to see how it changes over time, to see what story is being told visually by the environment you're going into. You're finding, as you're looking around, you're finding notes and letters hidden by people. You're finding pictures. You're finding out information about this town while you're finding these different elements to solve the puzzles. So it's establishing a setting. It's
It's pretty
establishing.
minor. It's pretty minor.
I think it's not as minor as you think. But okay.
I mean, I think I've been playing as a first time player. All I'm like is, and again, some of it is just fine. And you're right. If you try to break it down to its most simple forms, every game at some point is a fetch quest. But like when I go and like Astrobot, you can say, oh, that's a fetch quest just for finding robots, right? But it's not, because the way they present it and the way you engage with the game doesn't make it feel like that. This is literally step one. Oh, to do step one, you need to do 2 sub steps. Okay, you did that. Now you go to step 2. Guess what? Now there's 3 sub steps. It just feels more painful. I am struggling, Alex, as we're rounding out the last statements for the first segment. I am having a hard time to find even a single redeeming quality of this game. I despise this game. I hate it. And the whole time I'm just sitting, do I use my 1 veto this early? Like, it is a third gen or, new gen game. What if you pull some freaking bullcrap Nintendo game out your butt and it's horrible? Now I'm forced to play that. Yeah. We got a whole year before I get another veto. So I hate it. Like,
I think the game does scare you. I think it scares you. It scares you in a different way than like a normal like zombie slasher might scare somebody. I think the game is making you feel extremely unsettled in ways that you're not prepared to identify.
I promise you it's not that. I wouldn't lie. I promise you.
And I think there's a little bit of introspection required of yourself to figure out what's happening. But because the one thing I'll say about this, and we'll go into the next, let's go into the next segment, and I'll go put the positive spin on it because I have positive takes.
I can't wait. I can't think of a single positive thing. Listeners, this isn't a normal podcast. I'm just crapping all over it. You know what my vote is. Don't play this, please. I paid $75 for the honor. Garbage. But what's not garbage is segment number 2. Will we play the game? We're going to end up doing it. Stick with us. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
All right, welcome back to segment 2. Adam just vomited like one of the Silent Hill 2 monsters all over the podcast and all over the game. Let me bring us back. Adam said he's probably not going to be talking. I will, just to bring us in, though. Over the break, Adam was pleading with me to let him veto this game, so and get another veto.
I was just groveling the whole break. That is funny. I'll give you credit. Yeah.
I do want to note that Adam's not alone in his opinion. Over the break, I was looking at some reviews. They're mostly glowing. There is one review from The Guardian UK, and it almost sounds like Adam had written it. So if you want a more eloquent version of what Adam has said, you know he's not alone, although you can tell from the way the person wrote the review, they also didn't finish the game. So that's worth noting. One comment that Adam made, though, over the break to me was, he said, so even though it works as intended, that doesn't mean it's a good game, which I think is the perfect segue to discuss why Silent Hill 2 is such an amazing game. Silent Hill 2 is an intentional game, the likes of which we rarely see in the medium. Now,
it's tough, though. It's tough because we're talking about the remake, not the original.
I think it holds for both, as far as I can tell. Your complaints are not going to be solved by playing the PS2 version of the game. Most of your complaints.
Some of them are.
How about instead of a veto, you got to play through the Silent Hill 2 version while I play through the remake?
I will actually. Can I do that? Is that an option?
I'm fine with that. Yeah, you got to play through it. I don't want you doing a walkthrough.
Dang, it means I got to play the first like 4 hours again.
It's much shorter in the first in the remake or in the original.
That's another thing we can talk about. But yeah,
We'll talk about so, but my the thesis is that Silent Hill 2 and the remake is a very intentional game. Now, I don't think I ever said that Silent Hill 2 is a good game, as in it's fun to play, as in it feels great. I said it's one of my favorite games of all time. I said it's one of the greatest games of all time, but I never intended to make Silent Hill 2 seem like it's just this blast, like you're going to have a great time, like you would for something like Resident Evil 4 or even the original Resident Evil, I'll admit, which is a horror game in a similar genre as Silent Hill 2. But the beauty of Silent Hill 2, at least in the original one, and the reason I'm excited to play this one, is that Silent Hill 2 does something that very few, if any, games had done up to this point, to where it lets the gameplay take a back seat without being broken gameplay. The gameplay takes a back seat or is used in ways to subvert your expectations. Again, this guy is not a superhero. You're not supposed to feel comfortable shooting the guns. You're not supposed to feel comfortable swinging a bat at zombies. You're not supposed to feel comfortable walking around an abandoned, derelict apartment covered in blood and rust in the middle of the night with a flashlight that can barely stay on. The game is meaning for you to feel uncomfortable. It wants you to feel bad, and it makes you feel bad, and it makes you feel uncomfortable. And that is something that many games don't do. Now, there are times where the game probably makes you feel frustrated, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I don't feel much frustration playing the game, but perhaps that's because I'm familiar with Silent Hill 2 in general. But there's a difference between a game making you feel bad because it's a bad game and a game making you feel bad because it's making you feel bad with what you're seeing and what you're doing and what it's presenting to you. And I contend, and that's why I said Adam needs a bit of introspection, that you need the beauty of this game is that it makes you feel a certain way, whether you can recognize it or not. It wasn't until I beat Silent Hill 2 and started playing this again that I realized, man, this game constantly makes me feel uncomfortable. This game constantly makes me feel bad. Like you, Adam, there were moments playing through this game where I too stopped and took a breather and took a rest. Not because I was too scared, not because I was frustrated with the game, but because I needed a break from the game and what it was doing and the feelings it was eliciting from me. And again, that's why I think it's such a great game. That I'm feeling that way, not because the game is broken or messed up, but because the themes it explores, the environment you move in, the way you play the gameplay itself is there for story reasons and overall just thematic and feeling reasons to make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel bad. It starts from the very beginning. You're in a public restroom that looks horrible. You walk out into a parking lot that looks horrible. You're in this supposedly beautiful, perfect place that your dead wife has sent you a letter telling you to come find her in, and it looks abysmal. You do not want to be there, but the game makes you there. And the great thing is, you hate James Sunderland, and he's the one that's making you go forward because you don't want to go into Silent Hill. You don't want to go into these stores. You don't even want to go into the apartment. And he's making these awful choices every step of the way. A good example. One of the encounters when you first meet Pyramid Head, that iconic boss of Silent Hill 2, um, you watch him, he's having his way with some of these zombies, and he goes out the door, and then you go like a normal person, like you said, would probably just bail out there, get in my car. Listen, I know my wife's dead. I'm out of here. James Sunderland doesn't do that. He goes to where that guy came from. He opens the door. There's nothing. There's a huge drop beneath him, and you have to jump over across that drop to go into another building that looks even worse than the building that you're currently in. And he does it because it's James, and you hate him, and he's pushing you forward into this ever increasingly horrible environment, horrible situation. Why is he doing it? You don't know, but it pisses you off that he's doing it. It makes you hate him that he's doing it. And James Sunderland, the character, is the one dragging you through the game. You're not dragging him through the game. He's dragging you through this horrible, horrible experience. And it's very salient, and I can't talk more on that too much, but it comes around to some degree as you finish the game, and it makes more sense, and it puts the finishing notes on the game. It's and so it just seems so amazing to me that all the reasons you reflect as to why you don't like this game are the very reasons why I like this game. And it's an interesting question. Do I like the game? Do I like this game so far? Because I have played the original game. And to some degree, that might be the case. But the things that you have issues with are the very things that many had issues with when it originally released on the PS1. Now, the PS1 or PS2, PS2 might have done it better, but people were upset about the clunky controls. They were upset about how you navigated the apartments. They were upset about the deadpan dialogue. They were upset about the ugly characters. And that's the same things you're upset about. They were upset about how awful James Sunderland was as a protagonist. And that's what you're upset about. So it's mind blowing to me and it's validating to me. And I wish there was a way that I could tell you, yeah, you need to feel worse. You need to feel more bad. I want you to play this game so you feel more bad because sometimes that's the only way you can see how great something is. Now, a metaphor would be, again, not to say that this is in the tier of Shakespeare, but if I had to put something in the Shakespearean realm of video games, it would definitely be Silent Hill 2. Reading Shakespeare, especially as a non-native speaker of Shakespearean vernacular, is a chore and it's a pain sometimes. But when you work through that pain and you work through that chore, you find some of the wittiest writing there's ever been, some of the most beautiful writing there's ever been, and some of the greatest stories that have stood the test of time. So much so that people like you get upset that those stories get rehashed in the form of video games and movies and things like that because they are truly timeless and they're truly classical. So, in that sense, I think this game is worth slogging through. On that note, I'll go through the things that I noted that I really particularly enjoyed about the game. Does that sound good, Adam?
I can't even fathom. I'm really thinking about doing the PS2. Like, I just cannot. Have you ever watched the movie Cannibal Holocaust?
No, but I've heard about it. Yeah, and I feel like it's yeah.
That material made me feel uncomfortable and like I wanted to stop because of what I was watching, right?
Yeah.
This game is not doing that. What you claimed it's doing. It's not making me look introspectively. It's making me want to break my PS5 or hope that it overheats and dies.
The reason I think there needs to be introspection is because I do think you might be conflating the game mechanics, which admittedly aren't super fluid, but again, you're not Kratos.
Fuck, dude.
I'll elaborate. But the thing I really like about the game, one of the things I really like is the sound design. Now, this is the first time I've played a game wearing the Pulse headset on my PS5 where it's really made a difference because that is an isolating headset and the sound design is incredible. When I'm walking through the apartment and I don't hear the radio yet because some of the enemies don't trigger that radio till they're fighting you. The radio static only happens when there's hostility, and some of the enemies aren't hostile yet. But I hear them like gurgle or walk around or something. The stomping in the apartments, the doors slamming, the people murmuring in your ear. That is so excellently done and done better than it was in Silent Hill for PS2, probably because sound technology's got better. The various interludes of music occur at just the right moments and they work very well. It's used sparingly and it's used well. And then one of the things I didn't notice until like the third enemy, some of those enemies, when you kill them, they let out like a sexy whimper as you hit them, which is like a weird thing to say. Again, makes sense in the context of the game, but as you're stomping on them, as you do that final blow, it's like it's a very beautiful touch to the combat engine. Again, you're not going to get it, Adam, but the one thing that's really messed me up is as I've been playing the game, my wife's been downstairs like cleaning and breaking down boxes and washing dishes. And those noises coincide perfectly with the game, and it makes it even scarier to where I'm walking through a seemingly harmless hallway that's dark and pitch black, but I hear banging downstairs in my house. It just adds to the effect. Nobody else is going to get that necessarily, but nice thing. It works well with the sound design. But the sound design in general is top notch. Other things, you mentioned the dialogue being bad. So this is kind of like have you ever seen the show Twin Peaks? I think you have, and you hated it.
Yeah, I made it to like 2 episodes and I couldn't do anymore.
So this is a very Twin Peaks-esque thing where the dialogue is stilted and I don't want to say it's delivered poorly, but it's delivered in such a way to where it itself is unsettling. These people seem to be communicating to each other, talking past each other, and not quite responding to what the person in front of them just said. Again, ties in with the game to some degree. And it's done intentionally. This is done intentionally. They could write fluid conversation if they want to. We see that in games all the time. But here, the things being said are being said for a purpose. And the reason the dialogue seems disjointed is being done for a purpose. The reason James Sunderland feels so flat and deadpan when all the crazy stuff is happening around him, it's not done for no reason. There's intent behind that. Moving on, one thing I think this game lacks that the PS2 version had is a bit of cinematography. Because the PS2 version had like the fixed camera angles for the most part, it can really frame how you see every room and every encounter. In particular, the first encounter with Pyramid Head, this goes into a cutscene and you kind of obscured what's seeing, but when you first encounter Pyramid Head on the PS2 version, you kind of have a more framed vision that's not a cutscene as much, and it really sets the tone in a better way. One other thing about that scene is I think in this version, James fires his gun at Pyramid Head. I don't think that happens in the original, and I don't think it should have happened. So I wasn't happy with that change. But speaking of firing guns, the combat
When you're in the closet.
when you're in the closet, yeah. Did you see that on the PS2?
It happened in the PS2.
Okay. For some reason, I didn't think it happened. I was disappointed that it happened. But anyways, I remember that scene being much worse on PS2, much worse feeling.
You could tell that. Yeah, I mean, just the remake is just garbage. The PS2, you could see him actually molesting the zombies or mannequin things. So you got to tell what he was doing, which adds like that makes you feel uncomfortable. He immediately goes into the closet in the PS2, whereas here he sits there and stares at the guy for 30 seconds and then is like, I guess I'll mosey on over. And then the shooting scene was a lot more dramatic in the remake. The one, he was just like, the guy started walking and he's just like unloads a freaking clip in him and then it's over. So,
So it sounds again like it's better in the PS2 version. The combat, I think the combat is ultimately better, if not a bit more difficult in this version, because on the PS2 version, you don't have the over-shoulder aiming, so the aiming is just kind of like you automatically aim at the enemies, and if they're on the ground, you got to make sure you aim down to hit them. It's still a bit random, like how many bullets it's going to take to kill them, but it was just overall much easier to target and hit the enemies and make sure you're hitting them. I was never at risk of dying from basic enemies, whereas here I get a bit close to dying. But as I mentioned before, the finishing moves are great. I love his exasperated stomps on the enemies. That didn't quite happen in the original version. It does seem like the supplies are a bit dynamic. Like they're always making sure you have not too much of the ammunition, not too much of the health. And I think as you start getting low, when you open the drawers and the fridges, you find more of those elements. But if you have them, you're not going to be stocking up on like 10 energy drinks or syringes, or you're not going to have 100 bullets in your clip. The enemies are more intelligent and they have a bit of variety. So I don't think the original had the sneak attacks that you're seeing here. There's sometimes you're walking around the environment, you'll kind of cut a corner and you'll see that there's one of those like double leg mannequin monsters hiding and waiting to jump on you. That wasn't quite there in the original. Those enemies are much harder to deal with in this one than they were in the original. And I don't know that I like that because it makes it a bit too actiony, but it's not a huge detractor. I do really like the animation in the game overall. Like I said, his attack is kind of varied. One thing that I didn't notice is that anytime you encounter like a key element of the game, you'll see James Sunderland quickly whip out a map and write something down on it and put it in his jacket. And so if you ever go to your map, you'll look and see that he's left notes all over the map of things. Like, oh, this is the S door. This is the five coin chest and stuff like that, which is a nice little touch there to let you know you saw something important. But I almost miss it because I always go straight to the map, which sounds like you don't quite use, but it's there. The map is really important in the game. Other things, the visual enhancements in the game. The fog is important on PS2 for technical reasons, and the enemies will kind of come out of the fog. But it is not done in a great way. Here, the fog is still there for thematic reasons, and they use it better. So you'll see like somebody's head poking out of the fog rather than just seeing like a pixelated version of the enemy slowly materialize. I do like how the save room, every time you go to a save room and you save, you're met with James's face staring you in the eye. So it's like he's staring into his own face every time you save. The characters are more improved looking, although they're pallid and sick. The environments look beautiful, I think. Even the turgid horrible places just are much better to look at. I stopped a couple times walking down the Silent Hill at the very beginning and just look at the environment around because it was so, I don't know, lush and realistic. And even though terrible and despondent, it was still a very impressive graphical quality to it. One thing I do want to know, Adam, are you playing your performance or quality mode? Does that even matter to you?
Quality.
Oh, so you're doing like high frame rate? Okay, I'm playing performance, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference. The other thing I'll note, and Adam seems to hate this, is this game uses lighting way more than the original. As Adam mentioned, there's a flashlight that you have, and if you're not shining the flashlight somewhere, you're not going to see what's happening. Makes sense. Middle of the night in an abandoned apartment where there's no electricity. What's really terrifying is when an enemy jumps out at you and screams, it turns off your flashlight, so it's pitch black for a second, giving the enemy enough time to charge up their leap at you. So the flashlight comes on right as they're leaping at you. Such a nice touch. Fortunately, you have a dodge button, so you can dodge to the side and not get hit. But yeah, a lot of nice things improved and added here. A couple of things taken away from the PS2 version that might overall be a detriment. Yeah, the combat's a big difference. Camera perspective is a big difference. I think the environments are bigger. I don't know if I like that or not. It makes the game seem like it's going to be a bit longer, which I don't think it needed to be any longer. Um, but yeah, overall, I've been happy with the remake thus far, and I wholeheartedly want to keep playing. But Adam, I want to just go through the beginning parts of the story right now and just get your input on it to see if that frames anything for you, so I can better understand where you're coming from. We've gone over the intro.
The game sucks. That's
where I'm from. This is what blows my mind. Is there is another game that you love that I'm not allowed to talk about that is in many ways mechanically broken, and it has sections of the game which are horribly implemented for no reason, not even a thematic reason. It's there as a glorified load screen. Talking about the gummy ship, the combat has no tactile nature to it. It's very flaky and loosey goosey, and that also doesn't fit thematically in the game. It's just poorly implemented.
How has Kingdom Hearts not gotten a remake? Horizon, which got a remake like 3 years ago, is getting another remake, but Kingdom Hearts can't get one. But I've admitted that the first Kingdom Hearts, it's a little rough around the edges. I'll admit, sure. You have some good points.
That statement that it's a little rough around the edges is true if the entire game is an edge.
Nice one, but no. Okay, what do you want to know here? Okay, what about the story? What do you want me to give my?
So I just Cliff's notes here. James is running down to Silent Hill. He runs into that woman Angela mourning at a grave. She says she's looking for her mama. Then corrects herself, says, "No, I'm looking for my mom." And then she kind of tells James, "Don't go to that town. That town's dangerous." James says, "I got to go there anyway. My wife's there." He goes through the town. This town's seemingly abandoned. There's horrible monsters there. You work your way through the town. You find a letter telling you, "Hey, let's meet at Rosewater Park, where we, spent that last great day." And so you're trying to get to Rosewater Park, but sections of the town are blocked off, so you got to bust through apartments and things to get there. There's a couple key moments. You run into Eddie. He's puking in a bathtub or in a toilet. One of the only human characters you encounter. Did you look around the room before you met Eddie?
I saw someone dead. Is that what you're talking
about? Okay, you saw somebody dead in the fridge. All right. Did you read any of the notes?
I don't know. I don't remember if I did or
Maybe not in that room. There are notes that might highlight things about Eddie that are worth reading, but they'll come around. But yeah,
they probably won't. Also, PS2 version way better. Like the voice acting of someone vomiting was repulsive in the PS.
Yeah, there was like a volume to it. Like you could hear things coming up, right?
Yeah. It was incredible. This was garbage, but okay. It was meant to be bad. It was meant to be bad. I'm sorry. It's not garbage. It's meant to sound like that.
No. The second version, this is a remake of a game that is intentional. So there are differences here that maybe were misguided from the developers. That was a whole concern about Bloober Team making this, not the original team that made it. Angela, you do encounter her again. She's in a room that's one entire mirror. She's laying on the floor playing with a knife. She seems almost suicidal. Did you get to that scene?
Yeah. I think I'm farther in the game than you are.
Okay, I'm just making sure that you saw these moments.
I like Angela. Seems cool. She's on edge. She's the only part of the game that is even remotely interesting.
Okay. All right. And then, of course, there is a scene where you're running down the hall. There's like a grate in the room, grate in the hall. You can't get past it. There's a key. You reach out, and then that girl comes out and stomps on your hand and kicks the key away. You kind of hate her. You really hate her. James, of course, hates her. Then you run into her again, and she somehow knows something about Mary, and she says, "You never loved Mary, anyways," and she runs off. Um, so that's a key element to the game. I I assume you remember that. Have you encountered the girl? I think you encounter her a couple more times. You're a little bit further than me, but I don't think you know anything at this point. Um, what about Pyramid Head? What do you think about him just as a horror villain so far?
Nothing. A waste. I mean, if he could have been utilized better to maybe be a little more freakier, I guess. I'm not buying it. I'm not scared of him. The boss fight was really annoying. I knew it. They even Resident Evil does this stupid freaking crap rather than making the game fun and you actually fight. You just have to not die for 40 minutes and then the game progresses. I hate that. I mean, Mega Man did that. Final Fantasy has done that. Like, it's not just these games, but I hate when they do that. Why? It's not fun. So I'm assuming
It
the rest of the game is going to be like that because I'm assuming he is going to be the penultimate boss and you're just going to keep running into him, but you're not going to kill him until the very, very end. Or that's what my guess is. So I've got a lot more running away from Mr. Pyramid Head coming up to me. A whole 14 more effing hours.
I'll be honest, it's been about a decade since I finished Silent Hill 2. I can't remember all the Pyramid Head scenes. I remember like one more after this one. That is a frustrating part where you're trapped in a room with Pyramid Head and he's chasing you with his big half of a scissor and he's trying to chop you down. He's properly menacing and he's certainly terrifying. And there's a mystery to him, kind of like Boba Fett, but as a bad guy. Um, what about the room with the filled with the mannequins? So there's one scene you go into a room. It's the first time you encounter the mannequin enemies. That it's actually the legs of mannequins kind of glued on top of each other. So it's like four legs, two on top, two on the bottom. But that room is filled with mannequins. And then in the middle, there's a mannequin with a light on her, and she has Mary's dress on her. Did you notice that it was Mary's dress?
I couldn't see. So, no, I certainly didn't notice that.
I don't know how you didn't notice because if you walk up to it and it's got the little icon saying you can walk up to it and inspect it, it frames it wholly and puts it right in front of you. And he says, "Huh, that's Mary's dress."
I guess I was focused on the flashlight. I was like, give me the flashlight. I can't effing see in this garbage effing game. So I was so excited to get a flashlight. And then, of course, when the monster moves, then you're focused on the monster, right? Like the last thing, I remember the dress. I just, missed that it was Mary's dress.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess at this point, then, yeah, you've gotten past me. Not too many spoilers, but what you've mentioned a little bit what you think's going to happen. Do you have any idea where the story's going? Do you have any semblance of what you think is going to be occurring?
I mean, that's one thing I will give him credit for. No, I've got no idea. I haven't really thought much about it because like in any media, I like it coming to me rather than me being proactive and trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
help it. I feel like you get a better. That's one reason why I don't think you like Kingdom Hearts because you're always assessing and trying to figure out what's best. You don't let the game and you don't let your emotions get wrapped up into the media. And I mean, depend on it. Sometimes that's good, for you if that's the way you are. For
No,
me,
I mean
I get more enjoyment out of it. So
you famously berate me for getting my heartstrings plucked by games.
only when you
Kingdom Hearts is just it.
only when you get like scared when it's like out anything with outer space, you get really wigged out about. But regardless, back on track. This game, I've got no idea. I mean,
I will say,
I know there are some things, right? Like Maria and Mary, that's not a coincidence. How it comes together, I don't know. The fact that Eddie won't leave that he keeps saying that, like, or maybe it was in the PS2 version. Somewhere he's like, the police won't understand, they won't forgive me. So I know something's going on with him. He did something at some point. Um Angela, I think obviously something's jacked up with her. I mean, I just don't know. And I'm not far enough in really to even have a guess at what these things are.
What about the girl? Anything?
Which, the little girl?
Yeah.
Um, no. I mean, the thing is, if the plot follows the story, it's going to be some horrible, stupid plot. Like, oh, guess what? Maria's your mom. You've been banging your sister the whole time. The little girl is actually your girl. Angelina is someone you probably, abused, and you've just forgotten because you've taken pills, and that's why you've woken up in the bathroom, and Eddie is your cuck or something. Like, that's probably what's gonna happen.
That's exactly. I wanted to hear that. I wanted to hear what Adam thought this game would be. Um, yeah, no, I will say I do think the story accelerates more quickly in the second half than it does in the first half. The first half is a lot about just establishing the setting of Silent Hill itself and introducing the characters. The story starts progressing more rapidly in the second half. I remember
the story I don't mind as much. Like, I hate him as a character, but the only time I even remotely enjoy the game or even find it palatable is during the cutscenes. I've never had a game where I'm like, thank God, a cutscene, yes, because I hate playing the game so much. So if there's more cutscenes in the second half, that is fantastic news. Best thing I've said all night.
I think there's more cutscenes in the second half. I will say that when I first played Silent Hill 2 on PS2, I wasn't having a bad time. I enjoyed the combat for what was going on, and I wasn't not enjoy, and I was enjoying discovering the city and establishing the setting and everything. But it wasn't until the second half that I was like, oh, now I see why this game is what it is. And it wasn't until the end that I was like, now I really see it. Now I had a real gaming hangover after playing it, and it's a big shoe uh, big shoe to fill with this remake. With that, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that wraps up. But Adam, I guess that brings us
what for the most part. Again, if anything, I mentioned even during the break. Well, is there more you want to talk about? Because there were some. Still, I'm disappointed that the PS2 version to this point, I feel like, is the better game.
That's the big question about the remake here. Is the PS2 version still the definitive version to play? Sounds like for you, maybe that was. I don't know. I think there's difficulty just in terms of how difficult it would be to actually play the PS2 version. Setting up a PS2 and a CRT TV. Maybe emulation on like a Steam Deck or something would do a good job. But when they start adding, extra high res and stuff like that, it really ruins parts of the game to some degree. But I think it does sound like your best bet would be to figure out how to play this game on the PS2 version. I think even on Steam, the PS2 version is on Steam, and you can play it as the PS2
I'm worried
version.
about is I'm already this far in, and I already don't like the game. And even though it's not as long, I would still have to get back to this point. And then, but then the PS2 version is shorter. So I don't have to play a game for 16 to 18 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you'll go through it so much. You don't realize how much time you waste trying to figure out what's going on. You burn through it. It'll probably take you an hour to get caught up to where you are now.
I don't know about that.
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
YouTube, it took 4.5 hours, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's running by all the enemies as well. He hasn't made a single misstep. He obviously memorized the whole game. And it took him an hour and 12 minutes to get where I'm at right now.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. It'd take you about an hour to get where you're at.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be able to do that, right? Because I don't know. I haven't memorized the game.
It's not that precise of a game.
I mean,
here, look at it this way. You're investing 2 hours to save yourself from 16 more hours and instead only having to do like 6 more hours.
That's true, but then I'm wondering what if the remake is better in some way, right? Like
I'll tell you now, if they have changed anything, they're not going to have changed anything to make it better. If you're not liking the things they've changed already, like the combat and the visuals, those are the things that they would change. Everything else, from what I gather, is mostly the same. So the key elements are mostly the same. So I don't think anything's been changed. I like the story's not going to change. If they have touched the story, they've made a grave sin. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. Here's what we should do, Adam. Because and yeah, I'm playing this game. And if you're not going to play this game, then I'm going to record the podcast by myself for the next handful, and you just get a vacation or something. I might get somebody else on.
We have veto power, so
and then we're not playing any other game until I'm done with this. And if I'm not being held to some schedule, that's going to take a while. So that's the issue we're confronted with.
Crap. I don't think that's fair. You're using the podcast against me to essentially mend the rules so that you all find your way.
Find me in a previous episode where I said we get one veto. I don't believe we said that.
It was either in text or it was verbally, like in the break.
I don't buy it, but I will say I think you should play through the PS2 version as I play through the remake. I don't know, man. It is one of the greatest games of all time. And I feel like and your complaints about it have a non-zero probability of being resolved by the end of the game once the game's properly digested. I will
say, by talking to you, that has given me a little more hope that it's on purpose. But what I don't understand is, if this is on purpose, how did they get enough people to even finish the game to realize that it was on purpose and it was as you put it, work of art? Because seriously, I would have quit a long time ago. Now, maybe back in the PS2 version, it was still like where you go and you rent a game and that's your weekend. So you don't like it, but that's the game. You're screwed. So you're going to play it whether you like it or not. So maybe back then it worked, but nowadays I don't know why a new player would start to play this and be like, wow, this is good. I want to play 18 hours of this.
So that's a really good point, is that this game is certainly succeeding in the context of being a remake of a game that's highly revered. Now, again, in the original one, the game moves much faster. And so it's easier for people to get to that point where they're like, okay, I'm not turning back. I'm going to finish this game. It's also was in the context of like not really much else happening in this genre, not really much else experienced in this genre. Like, in terms of gameplay, there wasn't really much to compare it to be like, oh, it controls bad. Oh, it's clunky. Oh, the combat's bad. Because like we're comparing against Resident Evil. And compared to Resident Evil, it controls like a dream because you have that 3D movement. So I think there's some things helping it out there. And that's why people originally continue to play through it. But even looking at like reviews and stuff, people, properly complain about the things you're talking about. Nobody's given this game a 10 out of 10. I wouldn't give the game a 10 out of 10. If I were to give the game a score, the PlayStation 2 version a score, I'd probably give it an 8. That still doesn't mean it's not one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite game of all time. Because there's certainly things that could be done better. There's certainly things that I don't like about it. But thematically and holistically, it's literally, as a video game, a work of art. And I feel like you got to see it to the end. So at the very least, you could say you played it. And if you hate it, you got things you can back it up with. So that next time somebody like me comes along and tells you Silent Hill 2 is great, you can be like, shut up. No, it's not. I beat it.
Yeah. I mean, sounds like I'm screwed. I just think it's too early to use my veto power.
That too. Yeah, I'm not going to give you a new veto January 1st. That's stupid.
Yeah. Because I just don't know what other garbage you're going to come up with. At least this is like a shorter game.
Well, hey, let's do another 4 hours. Listen, that's just another 4 hours, Adam. Just get it under your belt.
I think, well, we'll talk about it offline. I think I want to burn through it quick. I just rip the effing Band-Aid off.
All right.
I have so many games in the background. All I want to do is play Evo or Search for Eden. That's all I want to do. And we can't get there. That's it.
All right. Yeah. So the faster you get through it, the sooner we can put this to bed.
I have to go at your pace too, right? I can't just
No. Yeah, because I've already beaten the game. I've already beaten the original, so you're not going to spoil anything for me. Now it's a question of, can this game win Adam over? Can this game turn Adam around? Remember, Kingdom Hearts, famously, it wasn't until the very end I was like, all right, I found something that knocked this up to like a 6 or 7 out of 10, as opposed to a 2 or 3 out of 10. It wasn't until that moment at like the very end of the game that I was like, I think I can like parts of this game. And there might be some redemption here for you. There might be redemption in Silent Hill, Adam.
Yeah, and I mean that's exciting. I mean, I think if they do the right things, the story is ambiguous enough, and I'm a plot guy. I'm a plot guy. You're right. But without you having this podcast and us talking about it, there is no way in HE double hockey sticks I would have ever continued.
That's the whole point.
That's why I feel like it is a failed game and they should be ashamed of themselves.
That's the whole point of this podcast, Adam. The whole premise and twist of this podcast is that we might disagree about a game and one of us has to drag the other one through the mud. Please let me drag you through this mud. You know what I'm going to do, Adam? I will give you my veto, and you'll have 2 vetoes and I'll have none if you make it through Silent Hill 2. How about that?
Dang. I mean, okay. I mean, that seems pretty fair.
Let me drag you through this mud, baby.
14 hours. I got 14 more hours. Oh no. Oh no. I'm dropping the combat to easy. I can't do it.
No. Oh, that was of course going to be my recommendation. Drop combat and drop puzzles to easy so you're not wasting your time. I might do the same
puzzles
thing.
I want to keep. Maybe I'll go to hard on puzzles.
No, let me tell you, the hard puzzles are bad. They're bad. It's like there's a puzzle that's like medium would be like Mildred has 2 brothers and she has 3 sisters, but her mom had 7 kids. How many kids does Mildred not know? And then like, oh, I'll just like add these up, and it's like, and it's kind of cute, and there might be some funny names or something. The puzzles on hard are like, Mildred's an orphan. How many kids are there? And then you got to run around the town and find pictures of all the kids or something like that. Like it's real bad.
Okay, well, what's also real bad is the first 4 hours of this game, but it's okay because gaming is in session. We're going to finish the game. I'm going to power through. Can Silent Hill 2 win the judge over? You'll only find out next time. It may take a couple extra episodes. We'll see how it goes. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We're on all podcast platforms that we know of. If we missed one, let us know. Catch us up on YouTube. Gaming is in session there as well. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time, folks.